Hello everyone! Welcome back to our channel, where we try to bring you the latest research on diabetes and nutrition. Today, we have a film which was made in Singapore. It's actually subtitled in English, but it is a very simple story. So if you look at it from a production point of view, it might seem like a low-budget film, but what it does do quite effectively is show the harmful effects of sugar and highly processed food. And it also helps people to understand that diabetes is not caused by something you were born with. It's not caused by genetics, but rather things that happen over time as a result of poor diet and lack of exercise. It also shows very clearly people who are at risk of diabetes, how they can go about making changes in their lifestyle to prevent the onset of diabetes, and in fact, even reverse some of the features of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So if you haven't seen this film, I encourage you to take a look. You can see it on YouTube by clicking on the link in the description below. The story begins in a rural farming community in Asia, and the family are trying to make ends meet, and life is pretty tough for them. As a result of various problems, they decide that they need to leave their village and go and look for a better life in the big city. So they move into the city, the parents get jobs, the father becomes a taxi driver, and the mother works in a factory. They don't really have time to cook, so they end up eating out most of the time. And the diet consists of lots of junk foods that are high in added sugar and refined carbohydrates. In particular, the father starts eating more and more of these junk foods, and he gains weight. He develops abdominal obesity, and then he starts developing other features of type 2 diabetes, like itchy skin, and then he develops sores on his feet. The son of this family, who is studying in the city, becomes worried about his father's health, and he tries to persuade his mother to do something about the way her husband is living, and the mother feels guilty because she has been working long hours in the factory and does not have time to pay much attention to her husband. She asks her mother-in-law, that is the grandmother of the family, to go and live with her father and look after him. So grandmother moves in, and she encourages the father to walk for 30 minutes every day. She takes him shopping in the local market and buys him fresh vegetables and fruit and tells him to eat these, rather than the junk food that he's been buying from the corner shop near his workplace. Together, they go to the wet market and buy lots of fresh vegetables and fruit, and the grandmother helps him to prepare these meals. She encourages him to stop smoking and to drink green tea instead of the carbonated soft drinks that he's been drinking. And she encourages him to park his taxi further away from his destination so that he has to walk further. The mother continues to work long hours in the factory, but when she comes home, she finds that her husband's health is slowly improving, and he is now able to walk up the stairs without getting out of breath. His wounds have healed, and his skin is no longer itchy, so she joins in and starts walking with them. After 3 months of this regime, the father has lost 9 kilos in weight. His blood sugars are normal. His wounds have healed, and his quality of life has greatly improved. It's a very simple story, but there are several things that I think are important about this story. First of all, it puts the focus firmly on the family as the focus for change. Now, many films like this tend to identify one person as the patient, and everything revolves around that person. But in this film, we have several people who are at risk of type 2 diabetes. We have the father who is overweight and has several classical symptoms of pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Then we have the mother who isn't overweight, but she's still at risk because she is leading a very inactive lifestyle. Also, many people of Asian ethnicity have a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. So although she may not be overweight, it's likely that if she continues to work in the same job, doing the same thing every day, sitting at her desk, that she will eventually develop type 2 diabetes. Then we have the son who's concerned about his father and wants to do something about it, but he himself has a very unhealthy lifestyle. He is overweight, he's not physically active, and he tends to snack between meals on biscuits and cakes. And lastly, we have the grandmother, who is a very wise woman and knows how to motivate the other members of the family to improve their lifestyle. She is the catalyst for change, and in particular, she is the one who gets the father to become more physically active and eat a healthier diet. So what are the key messages from this film? Well, first of all, it shows the importance of being physically active. All the members of the family are leading very sedentary lifestyles, and the only way they change this is by the grandmother encouraging the father to go for walks. Now, the problem with just going for walks is that it's difficult to keep this up long term, and it's best if you can incorporate physical activity into your daily routine. This is called something called incidental exercise, and it's basically all the non-exercise related movements that you do during the day. For example, if you're a taxi driver, you're probably going to be driving for most of the day, but there are certain things you can do while you're driving that can make it more physically active. For example, if you park your car further away from where you need to go, you will need to walk further. If you're going to visit someone in the hospital, for example, instead of driving right up to the entrance, park further away and walk the rest of the way. If you're going to a restaurant, park further away and walk the rest of the way. Even getting off 1 or 2 stops earlier on the bus or the subway and walking the rest of the way can add up to quite a bit of extra exercise. It's not going to be as effective as going for a structured walk, but it will add to your total activity levels. Another thing that the grandmother did was she encouraged the father to stop eating the junk food that was full of added sugar and refined carbs, and to start eating healthier foods from the market. And this is a very important message because it's becoming increasingly clear that the junk food that's available to us today contains excessive amounts of energy, particularly in the form of added sugar. This is causing major health problems, not just in adults, but also in children. Now, when I say junk food, I'm talking about foods that are usually deep fried and usually high in added salt, added sugar, and added fat. Most of these foods are very palatable, and they stimulate reward pathways in the brain and cause you to overeat. These reward pathways in the brain are stimulated by foods that are high in either fat, carbohydrate, or protein. But the combination of all three, that is, foods that are high in fat, carbohydrate, and protein, stimulate these reward pathways excessively, causing you to eat more than you normally would. So if you are going to choose foods to eat, try to stick to foods that contain either fat or carbohydrate, but avoid foods that contain all three. Now, another thing I noticed in this film is that the grandmother never nagged the grandfather or the mother or the son. She never told them what they should be doing. She never forced them to do anything. She just led by example. She just got on with it and did it herself, and gradually everyone else joined in. So if you are in a similar situation, don't nag, don't force, don't bully. Just be a good role model and lead by example. That's the only way you can really influence other people to change their lifestyle. I think this is a good film. It's not a great film from a cinematic point of view, but it is a good film in terms of its educational value. The message is very clear. Type 2 diabetes is preventable, and if you make the right lifestyle changes, you can reverse most of the features of type 2 diabetes. If you have type 2 diabetes, don't be afraid to share your food with your friends and family. And if you are a healthcare professional looking after patients with diabetes, encourage them to bring their families along to consultations so you can educate the whole family about the disease. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up subscribe and turn on notifications. Until next time, please take care of yourself because you're worth it.